Hey everybody, so let's get started with these questions. At the Florida Foxes on Twitter asks, what's the craziest question a guest ever asked while working at the parks? And it didn't get anything too crazy. Probably one of the craziest things was I had somebody who asked how they got the monorail to the Disney MGM studios. And yes, it was MGM at the time. This person was so insistent that there had been a monorail there the last time they visited the parks. This lady said, it was there last time, I took it right from the Polynesian, I went to the Disney MGM Studios theme park, it was there. And I said, I'm sorry ma'am, we've never had a monorail to the Disney MGM Studios. And she said, it was here, I took it, don't call me a liar. I said, well, we probably wouldn't have constructed $1 billion monorail system and then ripped it out with no evidence only a year later. And no matter what I said, she still continued to emphasize that I was a liar and I was trying to make a fool out of her. Needless to say, she did go to guest services and register a complaint against me. As it turns out, that didn't pan out. Nothing really actually happened from that. Along the same lines, I've had guests who asked how to get to Universal on the monorail, and when I told them there was no transportation via the monorail, it was another park. I'd be happy to give them some options, but there was no monorail transportation from Disney to Universal. And they became quite angry and insisted that, again, I was lying and was trying to trick them somehow. So that was a good question, Kevin. Thanks for asking. And I wonder what the next question is. So, Sprinkly Diz from Twitter asks, if you could go back and work at any of the 3 parks you've worked at, which one would you choose and why? Tough question, really tough question. They were all a lot of fun for different reasons. But I think I probably would go with Disney again. Just the nostalgia. I went there from the first couple of months the park opened back in 1971, and there's just something special about that. I worked mostly on a little bit of merchandise, did overtime in many other of the attractions, but I don't know, I might work in the parks, maybe in one of the resorts this time. I probably wouldn't go back to monorails just because of the condition of the monorails these days. It's not the same. Universal was really great. It was a lot of fun. It was a little more loosey-goosey there. It had a little more freedom to have some fun with the guests and to sort of play things on the edge. So I really liked that appeal. And when I was at Jaws, just acting the script out and doing things was a whole lot of fun. Dollywood is so laid back, so much fun. It's not as big as the other parks, but it is a big destination in the Smokies. Beautiful place and so laid back. There, I would take a break and I'd just grab a hot dog and just be sitting on a bench people watching. And you didn't, unlike Disney or Universal where you have to leave and go somewhere, Dollywood you didn't have to do that. You could just grab a food from anywhere in the park and just sit down anywhere you like and just people watch or whatever. Sometimes you might want to go to a break room, but I like just sitting down and people watching. So I'd probably say Disney would probably be my first choice, maybe Universal second and Dollywood third, but working at Dollywood was awesome. Thanks for the question, Sprinkle Me Diz. Captain Skippy on Twitter asks, which monorail is your favorite train and why? It's hard to say. I probably think I liked Monorail Black the most. When I was a kid, I just liked that black stripe with the red trim. I never really had that many problems with Monorail Black. Black felt pretty reliable to me. On the other hand, Monorail Yellow, I used to joke and say they had to shoot old Yeller in the end. I had a lot of issues on Monorail Yellow at different times. Why did I like Monorail Black besides the nostalgia, the reliability, I guess? At least at the time that I was there, it seemed like it was a little bit more reliable than some of the other monorails. I also liked Monorail Purple quite a bit. Missed that train, but it was a lot of fun driving all the different monorails. And thanks for the question, Captain Skippy. Joe TV from Twitter asks, what was the best and worst interaction you had with a guest at the parks? Well, let's start off with the worst. The worst interaction was when early days when I was working in monorails, and Epcot was closing, and we were boarding Rush from Illuminations, and we had just gotten the stand-up monorails, the Mark 6s, so a lot of people thought they could roll the strollers on. At the time we were requiring all of them had to be folded up, so I kept reminding this gentleman that the stroller needed to be folded. Well, they didn't want to fold it, and when the train came in, everybody flowed onto the train except them, and they weren't able to get on until the last second, because they didn't start folding the stroller up until the last moment. That wasn't necessarily so bad. The gentleman was really mad. His wife was mad. They were cussing at us. The next day, however, the supervisor reported they had said that we pushed and shoved him and his pregnant wife into the train and were cussing at them. And so the supervisor said, I don't buy what this guy's saying, but you know, we may still have to get you to write a statement about it. And the next day, the supervisor called us and said, look, this guy's having a Vietnam flashback because his story is 10 times worse today than it was the previous day. He was just adding more and more embellishment to it. He says, obviously this is not what happened. And so it was pretty much dismissed. As far as best interaction, I would probably say way back in the very early internet days, I was on Prodigy. This is before even AOL or any of that stuff. Way back in the early 90s, I was discovering the internet, and there were a couple other people who were on sites. People were asking about Disney, so I was giving people advice and tips on what to do. Come to the park, talk to me. I'll try and hook you up with something. This is long before any of these websites are up now. And I met a few people. I met a few people that I interacted with online in like 90, 91, 92, 93, and just met a few of these people and was able to sort of hook them up with something, you know, give them some tips, get them ride the front of the monorail, and just give them a few extra things that they didn't know they'd be able to do in the park. You know, it was a really cool experience to be able to meet some of these people. This is the first time I'm meeting people online. This is, gosh, 25 years ago or so that I was doing that. But that, I think, was the best. There were lots of other cool moments, bringing kids up to the front of the monorail to ride up front, that I could see they were as excited as I was when I was a little kid in like 1972 riding the front of those monorails, and I said, I will be a monorail pilot. And a few years later, I was. Maybe a few more later, but it's many more years later since then. But those are probably my two best. At Universal, I can say we were given a lot of empowerment, and it was really cool to be able to walk the guests almost anywhere in the park and just walk them on any ride you wanted to. Somebody had an issue, you just said, come with me, and you just walked them over to the next attraction. You said, here, we're going to walk you to the front of the line. So it was really cool to be able to do that. At the time, couldn't quite do nearly as much Disney, so that was pretty neat. Thanks for the question, Joe. BetsyBoo75 on Instagram asks, do CMs get to ride the rides at the parks before the park opens or after it closes? Yes and no. just ride around a bunch of times? Not really, but all the rides have to cycle a couple of times and do testing to make sure emergency stop procedures are working. So during that time, somebody has to ride around and note that everything's working okay, animatronics are working, scene elements are working. Somebody will go through and say the smoker's not working in this scene, animatronics stuttering in this scene. So they'll note all that stuff every day, what isn't working right, what needs to be fixed. So during that time, you will get to ride a little bit before the park opens. Once the ride's closed, though, everybody's just wanting to go home. Everybody's just shut the ride down, put it through the closing procedures, and just call it a day. So not really that much afterward, unless there was some sort of late night event and they were going to reopen the ride shortly. And maybe. I did get to ride one time on Big Thunder Mountain when an older lady, I was working there in overtime, an older lady said she was a little scared, a little nervous. So they asked if I'd be willing to ride with her. I was just working overtime there, unloading the train. So I get to ride with this lady and just sort of hold her hand, make her feel a little bit better. That was kind of cool. So I got a couple of rides during the day, during when I was working, just to help this little lady out. So it was kind of fun. And thanks for the question, Betsy Boo 75. There comes another coaster. Girl Meets Neverland asks, is there a dark side to Disney or any of the other parks you've worked at? As in, are there things that go on behind the scenes that guests might be surprised about? I don't know if you could say that guests would be surprised. Some would, some wouldn't. There's definitely a little shenanigans that go on behind the scenes sometimes in different places. Cast members will be cast members, and sometimes they like to hook up, so there's probably all sorts of interesting places where cast members have hooked up with each other over time. When I was working in monorails, we had someone who was in a little bit of trouble because after a date with someone and after getting a flat in his car on one of his tires, he didn't have a spare. So he left a note on a guest's car saying, "Sorry, I had to borrow your tire," and proceeded to remove the guest car's tire so he could put it on his own car and get it replaced. Well, wasn't such a good idea. But security caught him in the middle of the act, and he was no longer working in monorails. One of my earliest memories as a cast member in Tomorrowland merchandise was going to eat lunch in the employee cafeteria underneath Fantasyland, and in one of the booths was Snow White, and she was kind of stretched across the booth with her leg hiked up, her dress kind of pulled up a little bit, and she was just chowing down on this burger, sort of like a trucker at a truck stop, smoking at the time. She also smoking a cigarette, and it was just such an odd thing to see. You come in, you're looking for all this, everything's perfect, and yet underneath Fantasyland, Snow White was just chowing down on that burger, sprawled across the booth, looking a little bit like a cheap hooker. And it was just kind of a funny scene. I wish I had a photograph of it, but it was pretty funny. Thanks for the question, Girl Meets Neverland. So there you have it. Those are the questions. Those are the answers. Had a lot of fun doing that this time. And if you have any further questions you'd like to ask, somebody has anything else they're not sure about, why things happen, odd stories, anything like that, feel free to post a question in the comments down below for next time. Or you can tweet at me at Mr. Coaster 1 on Twitter or on Instagram. Leave me a question there. And if we get enough questions, we'll do another one of these Q&As a little bit later. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and come along to our one of our next adventures. Remember, have a good time all the time.